Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. We are so happy to be here. Welcome to our
Confirmation.
post-primary election
Mid China.
YouTube Live with DC nominees. I'm Krylios, Team Racing Productions MC and producer, and today I am joined by Rayceen Pendarvis. Hey, Rayceen.
Hi, everybody. Oh, my goodness. Greetings and salutations.
Ooh, we love a fan.
Happy Pride Month to everyone.
Yes. Happy Pride. And I mean, we just had a very big week, especially when it comes to elections here in DC. So we are so happy to have our presumptive nominees here to have a good chat with us. So the first of our this is the first of two YouTube live presentations with DC nominees because racing, we're living in strange times. So, because of the pandemic, many of DC's voters mailed their ballots. So, we do not officially know who won in some of the races. We hope to bring you those nominees next week. But for today, we have the candidates who were running unopposed in their party's primary contests, who want your vote. That's you who want your vote in the general election. So the first one I'll welcome is Owolewa, DC Shadow Representative, Democratic nominee. Come through, Oye. We are so happy to have you here. Hey,
Yes.
Oye.
Hello.
How are
How are
you?
you today?
I'm
Fine.
doing
Thank
great.
you. How are
Long
you?
time no see.
It's certainly been a while.
Oh, my goodness. So we'll just jump right into it.
Let's.
Our
Yeah.
first question is, how do you feel about the results?
I feel good. I feel relief. I'm glad we made it to the next journey. I'm excited about the general election.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And so, has your perception been changed in your chances for the general election? Like, how do you look at it right now?
I feel good about it. The biggest thing is just not only spreading my message and who I am, but also
Mm.
the fight for DC statehood. I feel like there's been a lot of momentum in the fight for DC statehood. And especially with COVID-19, it makes people realize the value of having representation and how that changes our life here in DC.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yes, I agree.
yeah.
And that's so important. But most of all, for all the voters who voted for you and folks who would like to support you in any kind of ways, how can they learn more about you and follow your campaign?
Absolutely. My website has been revamped since we've last spoken. So it's oye4 dc.com. You can get all the information about me as well as new updates in the fight for DC statehood. I also have Instagram, which is also oye4dc, or you can check me out on Facebook. I do have my phone number online as I am an ANC commissioner right now. So if anyone wants to chat with me, I'm always available.
Oh, we love that. And before you go, is there anything you want to tell our audience about OYE, about the general election, about how you feel? Go ahead.
Absolutely. I just want to stay committed to the fight for statehood, recommitted to the fight for our own democracy, the way we pass our laws, the way we use our resources. Every aspect of living in DC is affected by us becoming a state. And I definitely want to thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Oye. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. You have a good one. Bye.
Ciao now.
So, before we get to the next one, let's, have a little bit of a chat and give our audience some important tips and some important information about the upcoming election. So, one of the first things that I want to go ahead and share is this. Are you vote ready? Pledge to vote, check your status, and register to vote. Text Team Racine to 40649 at headcount.org. And I'll say that again. Text Team Racine, TEAM space RAYCEEN to 40649. and get it together. Next, if you are not following Team Rayceen on all our social media platforms and channels, go ahead and do that. So on Twitter, we're at Team Rayceen. On Facebook, we're facebook.com/Team Rayceen. And on Instagram, we're also at Team Rayceen. Now, to follow and keep up with what Team Rayceen is doing in and around your community, you can go to teamrayceen.eventbrite.com. And of course, while you're here watching us, we want people to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our new YouTube channel. And you can go to youtube.com/C/Team Rayceen to do so. Don't forget, like, share, comment, and subscribe. And so if you're watching right now and you aren't subscribed, just go ahead and subscribe to our video, to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much. And I mean, Rayceen, we have so much on our YouTube channel that, if you haven't been keeping up with it, those of you out there, you'll find a lot of things. We have interviews with all the candidates that we're talking to today, all the nominees, sorry, that we're talking to today when they were candidates. Um, we have candidates with all of them from in DC to Virginia to Maryland. We have interviews with them, official interviews, follow-up interviews. We have all of that. We also have our vlogs, and you get to see what Team Rayceen is doing out and about in the community. We also have interviews with artists, entertainers, performers, actors, visual artists, musicians, everything. Like, we have interviews. We have been producing and creating a lot of content during this pandemic right here from our home, right here from our homes. And therefore, you can go ahead and go to our subscribe and watch what we have on our YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much. And one last thing about voting before you go, you guys can go ahead and get the Vote for DC app. You can go to the Vote for DC website and you can request how to vote. You will learn how to vote, so make sure that you do that. Go to www.dcboe.org or just download the Vote for DC app. It's very, very important. Rayceen, let our viewers know about why it is important to vote.
It's so important to vote. You will never know unless you forgotten. It is so important to vote, and especially to do early voting. Early voting is so important. I had my whole entire family registered to vote early.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And we've all received our absentee voting ballots on time because we did it early. We did everything early, and I was so pleased. It was such a smooth transition. I was so happy. I was so overjoyed because, one, I didn't have to stand in lines for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe 6 or 7 hours. I'm a senior now, and I don't want to stand in line, so I do everything early. Or make sure you scout out those locations early. Some places have changed or some will be closed due to the COVID-19 situation. So I would say, if you forgot to do your voting early, go out early, get up early, arise, breathe, go to bed early, relax, release, and relate. Get up early with the birds chirping, rise early and stretch, and get up and vote.
We love that. We love that. And that's the only way we will get change. Well, there are many ways to get change, but that's one of the greatest ways to get change in this country. Now,
and that's why you make your voice heard. You make your voice heard.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what your party affiliation is. Get out and vote. Voting is so important on so many levels. It teaches our young children the importance of voting. For our young children who look to our older community or our young people or our millennials, when you begin to talk about the importance of voting and become part of that process, you show the world you make a difference every day.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Now, speaking of people making a difference, with us now is the District of Columbia's delegate to the U.S. Congress, who has served the residents of D.C. for almost 30 years, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton. Let's welcome her. I'm hoping this is, yes! Let's have her connect to the audio. Hello, Senator. How are you?
I'm good.
Oh, it's always good to see you. It's always a pleasure being in your presence, whether it's there in person or through the virtual experience.
Yes, yes.
I'd much prefer the last time when I came over to the studio and sat down with you.
Oh, we had a great time.
We had a great time then.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what you mean to me personally, and especially to my children, my grandchildren. You are definitely a light, a force, a beacon of hope. And you embody the essence of what the voting process is all about, the importance of voting, all the things you've done to make a difference.
We'll try to live up to that, Rayceen.
So, of course, my first question is, how do you feel about the results?
Are we on?
Yes.
Oh, yes, we are on.
Okay. Well, I must tell you, I'm not sure I could ask for more than 98% of the vote, which is what I got. And that's a real reward. I hope it's a reward for hard work. It's going to keep me working ever harder for the District of Columbia.
Definitely. I mean, oh, well, go ahead if you weren't done.
I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, I mean, with such a strong showing with such a strong showing with 98%, how do you feel about the general election coming up? I mean, that it's easy to think how you're feeling about it because of the results, but tell me about that. How is that for you?
Well, these results are very encouraging. I mean, if I had simply won, that would have been encouraging. To have almost everybody in the district voting for you tells you, hey, Eleanor, you better do right because they've been watching you. I think one thing that assisted me was there is an organization called the Center for Effective Lawmaking. And that organization found me to be the most effective House lawmaker. And it's interesting what they said, if I could quote them.
Please do.
They said it was based on, quote, proven ability to advance a member's agenda through the legislative process and into law. And they said this is noteworthy because this member is a non-voting member. They might have said not for long. We
hope so. Listen, we hope so. We hope so. I feel like, this fight for getting there has been going on for such a long time. And I think it's really gained a lot of ground, especially in this past year. It's gained a lot of ground. So we're keeping hope alive.
Well, I say that because when I say not for long, it's because our DC statehood bill has more than enough co-sponsors to pass the House this year. And your Zoom is right on time because it comes right after Steny Hoyer, the leader of the House, who sets the calendar for the House. Yesterday came out and said that our bill, the DC statehood bill, will go for a vote in the House of Representatives this session. And let me say why that is so significant. You'll notice very few bills are getting on the floor unless you're about the virus or perhaps about the appropriations. Just nothing else is getting on the floor. So the fact that the man who decides what's getting on the floor, and that is Steny Hoyer, he's the majority leader, has gone out of his way to say DC statehood will come to the floor before the end of this session. That is so encouraging to us.
Definitely, I agree.
And I think you are encouraging to us, to our community, to the world, and especially to people of color.
Rayceen, again, stop saying those things because I gotta keep climbing higher, find ways to live up to what you're saying.
Oh, and I thank you. And for those who do not know the Honorable Eleanor Holmes Norton, how can people find out more about you?
I hope people will keep up with me on my website. I hope they will also ask for my e-newsletter, which comes out every single week so that they can see what bills I'm getting through the House of Representatives. For example, if they were to come on my website, they know that I'm not just running on DC statehood alone. What I'm particularly proud of is that I have gotten new land for the District of Columbia. You know, Rayceen, we are locked in. We can't spread like our neighbors in Maryland, Virginia. And so when there is federal land, we would like to have going unused. We like to have that land. And that land is now being used. For example, I don't know if you've had the opportunity, Rayceen, to go to the wharf. That's my bill. And by the way, it's more, even more is coming of the wharf, but we already have people going to the wharf. We have people going to Capitol Riverfront. That's very developed. That's the southeast waterfront, and that is going to have another 10 years of development. Then there's NOMA, north of Massachusetts Avenue. That's created a new neighborhood already. That's land the district didn't have that's bringing in new revenue for the district. So I bring those up and I'm so appreciative of this opportunity Rayceen you've given me, but I bring it up because people hear about it and they yearn for DC statehood, but I do want them to know that I'm not over there just waiting to become a state to do what I need to do for the residents of the District of Columbia.
How about that? You are doing the work and we applaud you. And Krylios?
Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much. It's been our pleasure as usual. And we can't wait to see you again in real life.
Thank you. Thank you. Rayceen, I look forward to seeing you too. And I certainly thank you for all you're doing for the District of Columbia to make not only the residents know about what I'm doing, but what you're doing to make residents know about what others are doing as well. You are a national treasure.
Oh, thank you. I received that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
You have a good one. Bye. So now we will go to our next interviewee, and that will be Senator Paul Strauss. So let me welcome him into our Zoom meeting room. That is Senator Paul Strauss. Hello, Senator. How are you?
He's adjusting his audio.
Yes, he is. There we go.
How are you? There we are.
There we are. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Let's see. Good.
Good.
Yeah, so we're live right now. It's so good to see you. Rayceen, let's start it out with some questions.
Yes, well, our first question, how do you feel about the election? Election results, meaning.
Well, it's certainly gratifying to get the kind of numbers I got. I will tell you the thing that I like, that I found most special is when I began to look to see if there was any differential between different parts of the city. It turns out my highest ward was actually Ward 8.
Wow.
My second highest ward was Ward 7. My third highest ward was Ward 5. And so in this moment of such tension and focus, I actually felt very, very good about that.
No.
It really meant a lot to me.
I'm looking at your numbers,
71,141. That's a lot. So you should be really proud of yourself. So looking forward to November, how do you feel about that? What's the outlook on that?
Listen, the election was exciting. The numbers were there, but such a troubled time. I mean, there are real peaks and there are real lows. Today, I stood with the mayor as we renamed the corner of 16th Street and H Black Lives Matter Plaza. I felt that was important. 31 years ago, troops from China marched into Tiananmen Square, and they repressed a peaceful protest. Now, you respect that. You expect that from authoritarian regimes. You don't expect that here in the United States.
Yes.
And when we think of Tiananmen Square today, we don't think of it as a piece of geography in Beijing. We think of repression. And what Trump did was so horrific that we can't really just think, a random number like 16 and a random letter like H no longer is sufficient to give that intersection meaning. And so we, as the stewards of our city and the guardians of our history, need to commemorate things. And I'm glad we did that. We have, just today I learned that another dear friend of mine, an ANC commissioner from Ward 8, is in Georgetown Hospital battling COVID-19. We've lost so many people to this horrible illness. And of course, we're focusing on how many lives we've lost through police violence. So, yes, I'm honored by the support of the people of Washington, D.C., but the situation and the circumstances just remind me how much work really needs to be done. And so it's hard to be popping champagne, even with great numbers in an environment like this, because we've lost so many people one way or another.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, and thank you also for bringing that up about, renaming their Black Lives Matter Plaza, because we know what happened with Tiananmen Square in China. And that's not, taught there, that history is, unless it's repressed, you know what I mean? And so to have something there, down at 16th and H, that what happened here. Thanks so much for that. That's very wonderful.
And most of all, thank you for your dedication. And for folks who want to know more about you, how can they reach you or reach your campaign?
Well, if you have a question about what's happening now in the government and in our community, particularly in the Senate, which is a truly bizarre place right now, email my official email address. It's very easy to remember, senator@dc.gov. If you want to get involved with the campaign, send me an email at senator@paulstrauss.org. But we live in an exciting age of social media. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, @SendPaulStrauss. I've got some great pictures up from today, this morning. So we always love hearing from people, and I love being reached out to. And I have a great staff. They're very responsive. So we will answer you, even if regrettably sometimes the answer may be no. You will get an answer.
Of course. Well, you know what, Senator? Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to catch up with you in a little bit for the group discussion with everybody else. So we'll see you then. All right.
All right. I'll be standing by.
All right. Sounds good. Next, we are going to welcome Shadow Senator for the DC Statehood Green Party, that nominee, and that will be Eleanor Ori. So let me go ahead and welcome Eleanor into our meeting today. This has been so fun so far, Rayceen, hasn't it? Definitely.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
How are you?
We're doing great.
So you can hear me a little bit better.
Okay.
Can you hear? All righty, there you go.
Okay, and you're on.
Okay, it's live. I'm Eleanor Ori. I go by Echo for short. I am a member of the Statehood Green Party, and I'm running for senator. And our city, as we can all see, very much needs full autonomy and a senator right now. Electing me wouldn't automatically make, it's a shadow senator position. I think we all know that. But I think we also need a senator that really speaks out on the issues impacting the DC occupation going on, as well as police brutality. Yeah. And I would encourage everyone to consider the original statehood party candidates
How about
down
that?
the ballot stream.
How about that? And that's so important. I feel every time I'm with you or I see you, I always feel your passion. And that's so important to feel your passion. It comes through. It comes through and it just pours from your heart that you care about making a difference. And how do you feel about the election results?
I'm pretty happy with them. Yeah. I'm glad that my party is behind me. It's always good to make sure who in your local community is behind you too before going and trying to get the rest of the city to vote for you. So even unopposed primaries are important primaries.
That is true. That is true. They're very, very important. So since you've now, gone through this primary, how do you feel about the general coming up? Are you prepared? What's that like? Tell me about the campaign leading up now to the general.
So I am in the process of putting up a website. Things are very dynamic right now. I had, certain points in terms of the Constitution, in terms of like the transition into statehood. So I'm actually rethinking how my campaign goes in the midst of this DC occupation. I had one of the centerfolds of my pieces was more actions, raising more of a ruckus. So I think that is going to be more important than ever. I am glad to see that our elected officials are realizing the importance of that visibility too, not just in a fun sense of like 51st M&Ms, but like actually in the street and actually visibly standing up against our president. Earlier this week, I was really concerned about that, where it was like, did she consent to this action from the police force? Did she not? So I'm glad that she's clarifying that. I do think she also needs to speak out more against the actions of our own local police department. And I think there's two issues going on here, right? One is the police brutality issue on a national level and what has been happening to our brown and black brothers and sisters for so long who've been screaming about this for years and haven't been listening. And DC is not exceptional in this issue, as Stop Police Terror and Black Lives Matter. So we can't sit here and hold our own police department as some sort of special exception to that, as Swan Street, 2 blocks from my house, also really illustrated. The second issue is the statehood issue. And these paramilitary troops encroaching on our city and going full Crimea, that is a city issue against the colonization and the occupation of DC. And on that, I think our mayor is doing a good job at this point.
How about that? And that's so important. And once again, for folks who want to get involved with you, how can they follow your campaign?
I am at Echo for DC on Twitter, and my website, echo4dc.com, should be up and running by July.
Awesome. Awesome. Glad to hear that. So we're going to let you go for a little bit and then bring you back in for the group discussion when we will even discuss more about a lot of those important topics that you brought up. So I can't wait to see you with everybody else. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you. Now, next, we are going to bring on Marya Pickering, at-large nominee. So let me bring in Marya. Hello. Let me unmute you. You're muted, Marya.
Okay, is that
There we go.
Perfect. And we have sound.
sound? Yes, hello, hello.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
And that's always a pleasure. It's always a great time to be in your company. I enjoy having conversations with you. And our first question is, how do you feel about the election results?
Well, I'm honored to be my party's nominee. I'm very pleased that so many people came out and voted for me. I want to thank my campaign team, my wonderful campaign chairman, Dr. Charles Vincent, my treasurer, my media coordinator, and of course, many people who helped us out at the polls throughout all 8 wards in the city, and the voters who came out and voted for me. So thanks to everybody.
Oh, wonderful. Awesome. So now that you've passed this one hurdle, tell me about what the preparation is like moving forward now to the general election.
Well, I'm happy to say that we have ward coordinators identified in all 8 wards in the city, because I'm eager to take my message to all of our citizens who, in my opinion, have not been served well by the corrupt one-party monopoly that we have had here for well over 40 years. So let's look at the results. Let's look at who's been in charge here for 40 years and why do we still have all these problems? Why do we have homeless people in the streets? Why do we have underperforming public schools and a very thin and not competitive vocational technical program at the high school level? Why do we still have the great grandchildren of the Great Society living in poverty when all these well-intentioned social programs were intended to take care of all these problems? So who's been in charge? Well, they haven't delivered results. So I think the citizens of the district are perhaps ready to hear another message, a message of hope and opportunity and real progress going forward for everybody.
And yes, and for folks who know, we can all know and feel your passion. And for folks who want to know more about you, how can they follow your campaign?
Well, my campaign website, www.maryadc2020.com. We have links to all of our other social media accounts. So that's the best way to follow me. I do a weekly video, A Minute with Marya, on various topics. This past week's topic has been on the mayor's proposed budget, which again, in my opinion, leaves much room for improvement. So I address different issues that I think are relevant to the voters. And I know from talking to voters in all 8 wards, they have concerns in many areas. And so we're trying to address them and trying to put together some competent programs and ways forward to address the needs of all our citizens.
Oh, thank you so much. That's great to hear. That is so great to hear. And thanks for joining us today, Marya. We're gonna catch up with you again in a few minutes with the group discussion. All right. So I'll see you then.
Well, thank you again for letting me join you and for letting me get my message out. Thank you for providing this service to the voters in the district. I appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. It is our pleasure. Thank you. All righty. So next, welcoming to this wonderful meeting, welcoming to this wonderful call, we are going to have Ann Wilcox, DC Council at Large for the DC Statehood Party. Where is Ann? I just saw Ann in here. I think Well, I think
coming
something may have changed.
in.
I
Might have
think something
changed,
may
the
have
rules or
changed.
shift.
So we will just shift. Let us get Nate in here. And should jump back in soon, hopefully. Let's get Nate in here. So let's welcome Nate, Ward 8 Derenge from DC Council Ward 8. Let's have Nate. Nate is coming in.
Nate is coming in.
Hey Nate, how are you?
Great. Nate will just pop right into the first question. How do you feel about the election results?
I mean, I knew it was coming. As an unopposed candidate, I was pretty confident I was going to win. But still, big day. Like personally, it's kind of cool just to get that psychological win under your belt. Collect those votes. So yeah, feeling pretty good. Released a really cool video, talking about an issue I'm passionate about with putting rims back on the basketball hoops in the Southeast, and that's had some pretty good response. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but got a few good moves in it. But yeah, feeling good.
Oh,
overall.
wonderful. So, you've passed this one hurdle, which, as you said, you kind of saw that coming anyways. Now, tell me about the big one coming up. How do you feel about that? What's the preparation like? Are you nervous? Tell me all about that.
Well, I think everyone knows what to expect. Like my opponent, Trayon, Ward 8 White, he's got a record since he's been voting for 4 years, and he won his primary. So I think Ward 8 residents know what to expect with him. I think I offer a huge contrast. Not only because like I'm the new guy to the neighborhood, but also I'm a Republican, so a lot of my ideas are different. So I think this will be a good race. He's accepted public funding, and so as a requirement, we have to do a few debates. So I'm looking forward to having some conversations about the issues of Ward 8 and talking about some of these local issues and other issues that are relevant. So I'm looking forward to it.
And that's important. And for folks who want to know more about you, how can they follow your campaign?
Well, my website's the best place to go, NateWard8.com. And then I'm also on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all Nate Ward 8. And I've got some good content on social media. And I like to think my website has a lot of good content too, where you can see some of my platforms, some of my thoughts on a lot of issues. So that's where you go.
Great. Sounds wonderful. And Krylios.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Nate. So I'll have you stay here and bring everybody on for our group discussion right now. So let me welcome everyone else. Marya is here. Senator Paul Strauss is here. Eleanor is here. Wait, and look. Ann Wilcox is here as well. I never got to do so. Since Ann is here, let me put everyone back in for just 1 second and let us have a chat with Ann, all right? So let me do that once more and just chat with Ann before grabbing everyone back. All righty, so hello Ann, how are you? You're muted.
Hang on, there we go. Okay.
There we go.
I got my statehood green background and
yes, nice to see you. It's been a while. How has everything been since the last time we chatted?
Oh, real good. I'm still kind of confined because of COVID, but it's nice to see everyone getting out in the streets about really important issues.
How about that? And speak about issues. How do you feel about the election results?
Well, I'm very happy, but I mean, I ran unopposed, just like our other state of green. I was really pleased to see Janice Lewis George win. I think she's going to be a very progressive member. I think I was pleased with most all the results that we had on Tuesday.
Of course.
I can't really say Ward 2. I'm glad Jack Evans is moving on to something else. Shouldn't say that. He's a longtime friend. Sorry.
That's all right.
tell me about the general election. Now we have that coming up. That's the next thing you're looking forward to. How are you feeling about it? What's that like for you? Tell me about it.
Right. Well, we have a crowded field for the at-large race. There's going to be a lot of people coming in as independents, and some really good candidates are saying they're going to file. They still have to file sort of by mail or remotely. But I look forward to carrying the Statehood Green banner. We've been a ballot party for many years in DC. We want to maintain our ballot status. And we feel we always have a unique voice in terms of those progressive issues like statehood, affordable housing, healthcare, and trying to stop the trend of gentrification. So we feel there's always a lane that we can be in. So I'm looking forward to it very much. Yeah.
And that's so important. And for folks who want to know more about you, how can they follow your campaign?
Right. Well, I've got a website. Right now it's called Ann Wilcox for Mayor because I ran for mayor 2 years ago. And I also have a Facebook page. So look me up on Facebook. And I might change, I might be updating my my website a little bit. But I'm definitely out there. We've had a number of debates, from different communities and neighborhoods, and there should be more of that too. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
So wonderful. Well, since you're here already, thank you for being here. Let us welcome everyone back into the room and have our wonderful group discussion. So I'll just bring everyone back in. Here we are. Hi, everyone. Hello. It's great to have everyone here. So before our first question, let us take a few seconds and all pose for the thumbnail. So we're going to pose for the thumbnail for this video. So after 3, let us just pose for that and it will be great. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. All right, good, wonderful. So, DC voters were in the line past midnight and many requested absentee ballots, which they didn't receive. What are your thoughts about the DC Board of Elections and the 2020 primary election process? You can raise your hand and anyone can take that question. All right, let's go with Marya and then Anne.
All right.
Thank you for that question. I've spoken to several people over the last couple of weeks, including a fellow Republican today who claimed that they had requested an absentee ballot and did not get one, and then showed up in person and had to go through the process of voting in person. And I know a number of people in different wards stood in line for a long time in warm weather and waiting for their turn to do their civic duty and vote. I think it's unfortunate that the Board of Elections, knowing that we had this shutdown due to the pandemic, were going to send out so many absentee ballots. In fact, I understand 80,000 voters, that's about a quarter of registered voters citywide, requested absentee ballots. So it's unfortunate that they weren't able to deliver for the citizens of the district. But this is typical when you have a corrupt one-party monopoly. The performance has not served the citizens well. And this is another example of that. Thank you for asking.
All right, and we'll take it over to Anne. How about that?
Yes, right. Well, thanks. There's some states that do all vote by mail, like the state of Washington, the state of Oregon, and this works pretty well. I think once you get a system up and running, some people miss that civic act of standing with their fellow citizens and voting. That is important too. I think the Board of Elections had a major problem, though. They should have encouraged people to do the early voting, because those sites sat nearly empty for 10 days. They'd have a trickle of people come in. So obviously people had the COVID concern. I understand that, but the COVID was there on election day when they were all crowded together. So they really, unfortunately, should have tried to go even just the weekend before. If they hadn't had their ballot, go in, try to vote really quickly. And obviously, as Marya said, the online system didn't work too well. I did get mine in the mail, but I felt very lucky that I did. So definitely some kinks that have to be worked out.
Yeah, and that's so important. So we know it's still work to be done in all the process of everything. So our next question, we'll pose it to...
I mean, if anyone else wants to answer this one.
I just want to point out in terms of the one-party system issue. There are two members of the Board of Elections that have been most responsible for the election in the last year. And one of them is a Democrat, Mike Bennett, and the other one is a Republican, Mike Gill. So the Republicans had as much to do with this as the Democrats.
All right, and thank you for your passion. So I'll take my next question. I guess we'll direct it to Senator Paul Strauss.
All righty. So our next question is, what are your thoughts about the protests in DC and the behavior of local and federal law enforcement?
Well, I think you've seen two very different responses. First of all, our DC, let me just say that the response of our DC Police Department has been far from perfect. But when you compare it to the absolutely horrific and oppressive nature of what we've seen from federal forces, it's really been frightening. Nothing undermines the need for statehood like the responses that we have just seen. A lot of times we talk about statehood in terms of needing a senator who could vote, a congressperson who could vote. But what we really need in this situation is a governor. And President Trump has been able to mobilize troops and do things in DC that he couldn't do in the 50 states because we're not a state and we don't have a governor. I am glad that most of these anonymous soldiers are leaving. I have nothing but respect for the American soldiers who wear the uniform of our country, but the people who have been patrolling DC lately in these sort of anonymous camouflage outfits without a rank or an insignia or identifying who they are have been truly, truly frightening. And I have felt totally safe with the protesters. It is regrettable that there have been some instances of violence, which we should all condemn. But we should not be imposing federal troops to essentially handle what amounts to insurance claims when the majority of these protests have been peaceful. And let's not forget, so justified, so meaningful. I mean, if you're not going to protest the state killing your own citizens through horrific acts of violence, well, then what is going to get you out on the streets? So I was down there today with the mayor when we renamed the intersection of 16th and H Black Lives Matter Plaza. I thought that was important. I'm going to be down there tomorrow. But let me just say one thing. If you really believe that Black Lives Matter, and I know we all do, let us remember that we are still in the middle of a pandemic, of a disease that has disproportionately taken so many Black lives. When you go down there, be sure to be appropriately outfitted with a proper mask and other types of protective equipment. Cover your eyes. Think about wearing gloves. As much as you may want to be down there, if you shouldn't be out there because you have symptoms or because you've tested positive, please don't. We need to stay safe. We need to practice social distancing to the extent that we can. But this is a turning point in American history, and it has focused attention on the issue of DC statehood, tragically because of what we've had to suffer. But the statehood is no longer really just a political issue, whether it's the inequitable treatment that we got through the pandemic funding assistance or the fact that we've literally been invaded by an occupying army. It really is an issue of life and death.
And that's important. Would someone else like to answer that question?
Anyone else?
Sure. I'm appalled with the actions of the federal government this week. It appears they seem to have gone full Crimea on us, with unmarked military that answered to Bill Barr. I think if we had a senator right now, we could be doing proper oversight. Who's even funding this endeavor? So I think that is extremely problematic. I'm appalled that they shot rubber bullets and tear gas on our streets in our city. It's that part is really awful. I'm also really upset and disappointed at our MPD's involvement on Swan Street. That's a few blocks from my house. I was getting text messages from people. My neighbors were on the roof. Everyone was scared, and MPD was involved with that. So I don't think that the local police force is exceptional on the national scene in terms of police brutality. But I also think there's now the additional issue of this rogue executive branch infringing on the autonomy of DC. And it goes to show that when my party, founded by Julianne Hobson, said we needed statehood from day one, we needed statehood. This would not have happened if we had gotten statehood and hadn't been sold out back in the 70s.
How about that? That's very passionate. And Anne, I see your hand. You wanna wrap that question up?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a separate point. I agree with what Echo and also what Paul said about the need to get rid of these foreign troops. But I wanted to mention our own Metropolitan Police has had several killings of young Black men that were highly questionable. So they, have had this line this last few weeks that we're such a good police department. We're policing in an appropriate way, but there are names like Terrence Sterling, Marquise Alston, and others that were really questionable killings of young Black men right here in our own city. So we can't remember that. We need to hold them accountable through the NEAR Act and through the Office of Police Complaints and other tools that we have.
Speaking of that, thank you so much, Anne, and thanks for giving us that point as it goes into my next question, which is, Nate has returned. Let me admit him. So that goes.
Hold on. Myra wanted to answer that. While Nate is coming in, you can answer.
I would like to comment on that as well. And I will disagree with all of my liberal colleagues. We are not a state. We are a constitutionally mandated federal district. That makes us extremely unique in terms of both our mission as a venue for peaceful protest, which has been the case for a long time in Washington, D.C., going back to the days of the suffragette marches and to the peaceful protests led by people like Martin Luther King Jr. So we have a Metropolitan Police Department. We also have various other police forces associated with different government agencies. We have the Uniformed Secret Service, the Secret Service, the Park Police, and the president does have the right to call in federal troops because we are a federal district. These are not foreign occupying forces. These are people who are here to augment our local police department when we are inundated with a large number of protesters, some of whom in the past week have been less than peaceful. Okay, a couple of weeks ago, I and a number of colleagues had a peaceful protest at Freedom Plaza, asking the mayor to open up the city and stop killing our small businesses with this unjustified shutdown due to the so-called COVID pandemic. And I think this week's protests have shown us that these marches certainly outweigh the so-called concerns for citizen health that were previously touted. So if large numbers of people can assemble in downtown Washington and deface monuments and further destroy small businesses who are already suffering under the COVID pandemic, then perhaps we can all worship in churches and get back to business and try to revive our economy. So I disagree with this a number of points that my liberal colleagues are making. I think the president was well within his rights to call in National Guard and other resources because, again, we have a unique situation here. And I also want to comment on the fact that as an American of Polish extraction, I am very offended by the defacing of the monument of Tadeusz Kościuszko. This just shows the ignorance of the liberal mob. If there was ever a monument that should not have been defaced, it is that of Tadeusz Kościuszko, who fought with George Washington. He fought against slavery in America. He fought against slavery and serfdom in Europe. He was a friend of Thomas Jefferson's. He left his Revolutionary War pension to Mr. Jefferson with the specific intent of having it used to buy the freedom of slaves. So I take that, I think that is just appalling that these ignorant mobs would deface the monuments. Defacing monuments, revising history, and tearing down statues, ladies and gentlemen, is not going to bring anybody back from the dead, and it's not going to improve the lives of disadvantaged people going forward. There are better ways to address these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your passion. And one good thing about having a conversation is allowing everyone to have different viewpoints. And it's so important that here, you hear it, and everyone has their right at the table. So,
all right, and so since Nate has returned, I want to throw this question out to him. Thanks for coming back, Nate. And you know, many of our colleagues here already touched on this, but I wanted to get your view. What are your thoughts on the men without badges from unknown government agencies who are stationed near the White House?
First, I'd like to apologize. I had to leave. I was, fiance had a medical procedure and I was taking care of that. I don't have any thoughts on the men without badges near the White House at this time.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you this. Well, for everyone, I believe that this country is in a state of healing, and we need healing, and we need words to uplift us. So I would ask each of you to leave 3 words that for those who are watching, how they would feel. Whatever those 3 words are for you. And I'm going to ask Ann to start us off.
So this is for the whole city. I would say justice for George Floyd and all of the George Floyds out there.
How about you? Echo?
DC statehood and justice.
How about Marya?
Well, I think freedom for all.
How about you, Nate?
Freedom, liberty, and assembling.
And how about you, Senator Paul?
Black Lives Matter.
Love that. Well, thank you guys. Thank you all. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We are really, really happy that you guys took the time out to come here, to share your message, to spread your word, and to, you know, really have a wonderful discourse with us. We thank you guys so much for being a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for letting our voices be heard. We appreciate it.
We appreciate all of you for what you do. Standing.
Bye, guys. So you guys can remove yourself, and while I'll get others out. Thank you guys so much. It was a wonderful discussion. Alrighty, well, Rayceen, that was wonderful. That was great. And now we have come to the end of the line. We have come, it's just you and I now, honey. It's just us. It's just us remaining. It's just us. But wasn't that a lively discussion, girl? That was a very lively discussion. You know, I had one more question, you know, but after you asked, you know, that nice, hopeful one at the end, I just kept it back because I was going to stir the pot, but let's not.
We don't need to stir the pot, you know.
We don't need to. But before we go, I just want to share once again with our viewers what to do when it comes to voting. All right, so we're just going to share that one more time, so you guys can always go ahead to www.dcboe.org or download the Vote for DC app. You can also email, you can fax, you can mail, all of that. But if you have the Vote for DC app, then you are able to do that. Next, I want to remind everyone to text Team Rayceen. That is TEAM space RAYCEEN to 40649. Once again, that is 40649. Now, as we head out, Rayceen, Take us out. Take us out. Leave us with some wonderful words.
Parting words for all. The world that we know it has forever changed. Our cities have forever changed. Our people are in a process where we all need to come together and heal. Love is the greatest gift. Love can overcome anything. It can move mountains, it can tear down hate, and it creates joy. So remember to love yourself first, love others, and love the world better. Peace and blessings, everyone.